So last night we got a pretty big response on a subreddit from Bioware. This was a very honest, very long, very thorough post answering a lot of questions on effectively what was going on. In fact, that was the name of the subreddit thread that came in from Harish CS. There's a lot of really interesting information in here. This came from Jesse Anderson, who is a community manager, so it's not a developer going, here's how we're going to fix loot. This is the answer to all of your questions. And whilst this is a very honest answer coming out of Bioware, it's not honest about everything completely, you know. They're not saying, yeah, the game was underdeveloped, EA rushed it out the door kind of stuff. Of course, they're not going to say that because they'd be liable. EA would be very happy, and I'm pretty sure there's legal issues there. But I think it does give you a good idea on where Bioware's head is at currently. Some community members are still left frustrated because they felt that this was all lip service. But I disagree, it's a start. All things start from stuff like this, and so we'll go into it now. I don't want to hold you for too long. With that said, there's like 5 pages worth of text here, so I'm not going to read everything out. But it's effectively a to and fro between Harish and the developer, going over key points, starting with the first one, the state of the developers responding to stuff pre-release versus post-game. To just sort of sum up what Harish was saying, I feel that we really need to talk about this first. You are keeping the community blind of what's going on. We don't know if you're working on the issues, if you're reading our feedback, if you even visit the sub anymore. The Discord was especially filled with a bunch of blue name developers messages every time I went into a channel. There were devs having casual talk, asking for opinions, asking for their favourite Javelin colours. Where did all of that go? Right now, this subreddit and the fanbase is generally suffering from a lack of knowledge about the game they paid money for. It is one thing to acknowledge issues and then ghost the community, but it is another to not even acknowledge the issue and just bury your heads underground hoping the storm would pass. It's a pretty, not aggressive post coming out of Harish. I think it's all justified to be this frustrated with the developers, but this was Jesse's response. To start, things used to be a lot friendlier here for dev team members who normally don't talk on social channels or forums. They can answer questions, give information, and know that they aren't going to have people getting upset at them. Why would a dev team member take time away from working on the next update to post when they know it's likely going to be met with a hostile reply? Or they get flibbed because they can't answer other questions that players are asking? I don't mind posting here when things aren't so nice, but that's because it's my job. For the devs who it isn't their job, and I'd like to ask that people remember that when replying to them, when somebody says be nice or the devs will stop posting, it's 100% true. Be respectful and constructive with your feedback, and more team members will reply. I'm going to sort of give my opinions on each of these bits very quickly. I think with this, it's fair enough. I think there's a lot of developers that sort of chimed in with a bit of feedback on stuff that they were working on that we could talk about, get excited for, but at this point, there's this eruption on Reddit. I don't think Reddit particularly speaks for the whole of the community. Some of their frustrations, I think, are justified, but I think the way that they've portrayed it in a lot of cases, even when talking about this post itself, people just are never going to be happy with the response that they get. The second thing was aggravating the community by acknowledging trivial things over major issues. In the past 4 to 5 days, the community has been up in arms about a major issue that has been plaguing the game, the loot issue. It got to a point where several gaming news websites started talking about how there was no developer response at all, even though for all of that, it was a weekend and people have lives to live too. You took that for granted, and not only did you not acknowledge this, you started replying to issues that were apparently being fixed, but just minor bugs to add fuel to the fire. EA helped tweeted out that tweet about coming in-game and helping you figure out what's wrong with the game. Do you want to sit and test other not so important issues when you're on your last straw rather than fix the major issues that's looming over you? Jesse says, I have been acknowledging issues that aren't the major ones you mentioned, but that's because I can quickly check in on those and work with the team to see how fast we can get them fixed. I also report major issues, but until I get word back from them, there is nothing else I can say. Issues like the Masterwork Embers not dropping, I can quickly bring to the attention of the team and we can get it fixed. I think it's better that I address the things I can as quickly as I can instead of nothing at all. Also, I try to avoid saying thanks for the feedback, I'll check with the team too many times to reply to posts. For loot though, all I can do is point out what studio leadership shares on channels. They are very aware of the conversation going on around loot, and when there are more details to share, they will. The reason we asked for information from the EA Help Quick Play tweet is to help us track down the remaining issues players are experiencing, and to get more specific on what they were doing when they encountered the issue. Having all of the information helps the team track down the bugs faster, which means they're more likely to be fixed in the next update. Again, fairly generic response, saying that they're going to quickly fix all of the stuff that's easy to fix. However, for loot, that requires almost like a statement response, you know, on what exactly they're going to fix. And when they do have fixes for the loot, they're not just going to reply to a Reddit post, you know, they're going to make a Reddit post themselves, have a statement on what they're actually going to do. The third one is a bit sort of debunked. It was about being confidential about the patch notes. This is another thing the community had to discover all by themselves, and even then, at first you said there are no hidden patch notes. Any unlisted changes you see is probably a bug glitch. Then you go on to make posts titled Missing Notes from patch 1.0.3. I can't look at this from any point of view where it doesn't look like a shady business practice. Stop treating a community like first-time gamers who have to be given their bare minimum knowledge of your work, and they just nod and move on. Jesse says, I said this before, but nothing was hidden on purpose in the patch notes. The truth is, patch notes come together late in the update process, and I do everything I can to ensure they are accurate. But sometimes things slip by with all of the moving pieces. I'd much rather put together patch notes, even if they're missing a few things, instead of doing generic ones that just say various bugs and fixes and improvement. They're going to work with the team to make this process a lot better, but they still may have stuff missing from time to time. One other big factor about this is there are 2 studios, one in Edmonton, one in Austin, so is it just a case of Jesse can go to somebody's desk and say, hey, is this a bug, is this a glitch? More often than not, it will be communicated by emails and stuff like that, so there's going to be a lot of to and fro from Bioware. I'm not saying that that's, okay, I'm just trying to understand why this is such a problem for Bioware when other companies could do much better with their patch notes. Hopefully, it's something that can be improved, because patch notes need to be 100% as clear and informative as possible. There were 2 other elements about not learning from previous mistakes. Andromeda, also the EA hate. Some really choice words. The amount of negligence it would take for a company to go through a disaster of a release like Andromeda and still come out the other end with similar practices is astronomical. Not gonna lie, that's pretty savage, but also true. You, for your own admission, agreed that Andromeda was not the game you wanted it to be, and probably your biggest mistake. They're going to say that Anthem was built up as this thing, it was revolutionary in a lot of senses, but ultimately they made the same mistakes. You also talk about EA hate, which doesn't need to go into any detail. Jesse says, I'm not going to comment on these 2 points because I didn't work on Andromeda and I know how people feel about EA, but I do want to talk about addressing how we're handling feedback. We've made a large number of chases based on what players have told us. Not wanting to run to the Forge every time to launch an expedition. We added the ability to launch anywhere in Fort Tarsis. Stuff like wanting to see the loot drop from bosses. They're looking at a lot of the feedback that they got from loot, which no doubt will be rectified and fixed soon. I know everybody wants to know when, but I don't have the answer. We do not ignore any feedback from players. Sometimes it just takes a bit longer as things need to be discussed for a longer time. We don't want to say something we can't do or give incorrect information. Like Chad Robertson said in a tweet, we aren't happy where loot is either, so know that it's high on our priority list. There was a bigger section talking about discarded feedback, which stung Jesse as he says, I love this community and I am very thankful for everything that's been brought up, such as feedback, bug reports, funny posts, and everything in between. I'm open to feedback on what you'd like to see the community team do to make you feel welcomed and appreciated. We do our live streams, blog posts, like the inscription write-up, patch notes, helping out with issues when we have info and more. I am always listening and willing to make the changes, so please let us know. On the subject of lack of content in a lot of areas, Jesse says I'm not going to go into this too much, as it's areas I don't have control over or I don't have the exact info on how the team is addressing it. Know that I relay the feedback from the community to the team on all of these issues. The team is aware and they're doing a lot of work to address these concerns. The issue is that Anthem has so many different problems that it's kind of like, what can Anthem try and fix first? And even the progress that the game has made over the past month has been pretty quick and pretty big, to be fair, like fixing the game from the state that it was in. Granted, it shouldn't have been in that state in the first place, but I think that the game has made a lot of progress to being where it wants to be already, but the big issues that are really integral to the game are obviously going to take a lot more time to fix. I'm not going to make any excuses really for Anthem in this case, it's in a dire state, but I also want to commend Bioware and say that they are responding and executing faster than any other developers that I've really seen. I can't really imagine Bungie having to do all of the work here. I was going to say I can't imagine Bungie making the same mistakes, but they had a much more polished product though. Harsh did give a lot of feedback on how to fix the game, which I would definitely read for yourself. Some really good points in there, such as simple communication and progressive fixes. Gives the example of No Man's Sky, which they pre-ordered. They regretted it, of course, but because of the communication that kept coming from Hello Games, people stuck around to hear that side of the story, and the game right now is galaxies better than it once was. I'm sure Anthem is no exception to that change. Jesse's response: Anthem is here to stay. Do we have a lot of work to do to fix parts of the game? Yes, and the team is committed to making improvements and releasing new content. His conclusion was he wanted to thank the community. The team is listening to all of your feedback for Anthem on how you'd like to see the game improve or how you'd like to see us engage with the community differently. I know that players want to see updates faster, but these things can take time to make sure that they are done right. We're very appreciative of the community and look forward to the days, weeks, months and years ahead. Strong alone, stronger together. Like I said, a lot of people were kind of left here thinking this is just lip service, this isn't really a lengthy response, but I disagree. I think that this is the kind of response that Reddit really needed right now. Granted, it doesn't have all of the answers that people just seem to always want, but I think that it's good that Jesse got ahead of this and was just sort of giving his honest approach and kind of took the heat. The problem is that people complaining that there's no response, and then when they do respond, it's not the response that they want. So it's like Bioware can't really do anything right here. So I'm going to sort of stand up and say, like, give them credit for a response like this. I appreciate it. The game requires a lot of work, but no doubt there's been a lot of good feedback that I've seen on the Reddit, in the community as a whole. Even Bioware asking us game changers how to fix loot, so I sent them the video that we put out on Monday. With all that said, I am kind of excited to see where the game goes over the next couple of months. I hope Cataclysms are good, otherwise I think my interest in the game is going to drop significantly. But following this game is certainly a ride, a complete roller coaster. Some parts aren't complete, but it's still quite fun to do. But that's everything that I wanted to go over today. Thanks for watching. What do you think of this response? Everything that you wanted to hear, or just not enough? I'll see you guys soon. Take care. We'll see you then.